What's your wholesome experience with a stranger? I was once walking down an empty street late at night alone to find my dog. A stranger who was heading home stopped to help me find my dog and didn't leave until I found him. I was crying dramatically in the rain at a crosswalk over something I don't even remember, and this old man who stopped at the same crosswalk stood next to me and slowly raised his umbrella for me and walked across the road with me. I was crying hard and couldn't get a thank you out though. I hope he's doing fine. There is an older guy that rides his bike the same route as me. Every time we see each other, we race. I ride fixed. He's a roadie. We don't even really talk to each other. We just race. I haven't seen him a long time, but I was driving one day and saw him riding a fixed gear bike, and I got all excited. A Native American from a local tribe gave me a homemade leather pouch with a natural remedy inside and said, for the anxiety, I was on break at my first job. It was so thoughtful. I had a really polite kid, I'd say 8 or 9, come up to me when I worked fast food, who wanted to know if we had specific toys from the current set, Mario Kart. I asked him what he already had, and managed to complete his set for him. The next day, his dad came in and said that his son wanted the toys to give him for his birthday, which was the day before, because Mario Kart was their thing. I received a letter from the parent of a guy, inmate, at the prison where I worked. It said, I want you to know because of your kindness to my son. He was able to spend his birthday with his brother and family for the first time in years. He told us you were one of the few people he could count on to treat him like a human. Your diligence in getting errors corrected by the court has helped him trust again. He is enrolled in school. Thank you, sir. Very few people take time to do this, and it made my day. I went to a local breakfast spot after a rough night. Totally forgot my wallet, so I left my phone as collateral and went to my house, promising to be right back. Came back and some guy had already paid for me. He was there with his family, and I said thank you a dozen times. I know it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but it was a pretty bleak week for me, so it meant a lot. First time in the United States, and while in cold weather, I was out and about looking for jobs. I was not prepared for this type of weather. As I was waiting at the bus stop, a dude that one could say might be a gangbanger stood right next to me. By then, I was already just expecting the worst to happen. He asked if I was cold, and of course, in a joking manner, I said yes. He took off his jacket and gave it to me and just said, here you go, give it back to me later. 15 years had passed, and I wish I could have returned the jacket, and with a better career, now I could give some more. There's just no way for me to find the dude anymore. Last summer, I and a random dad with his son was waiting for the same local bus outside my town's biggest grocery store. 15 min after the bus should have arrived, the dad started to complain. Me too, where the was the bus? So we actually looked at the damn bus schedule and we realized that we had missed the last bus. So for me, it was around 1 hour walk home. For the dad and his son, was it 2 to 3 hours walk home? The dad asked if I wanted to ride the same taxi home. I explained and said to him that I could take my own taxi. Taxi is expensive of here. 10 to 15 min ride is $20. Since I lived X and they lived Y. No, said the dad. We should share. It's better for the environment. So I said okay. I was fully prepared to pay my share of the ride. But when it was my time, the dad said no, you don't need to pay anything. I was stunned of his kindness. Are you sure? I asked over and over. And he said yes, it's okay. So I thanked him, got out from the taxi and walked home, in awe of his kindness. Crashed with my bicycle and the chain came off. I was fine. Random cyclist stops, lifts my bike, and with 3 quick moves puts the chain back. It happened so fast, I didn't even see what she did. I wanted to at least give her some money for a coffee, but off she went. What an absolute pro. Thanks, random stranger. I was in Europe for a series of meetings and lost my wallet. I had prepay for my hotels and transportation, but I was very low on funds. I had enough money so that with the free meals I'd get at the meetings and breakfasts that are included, I could get by. When I checked into my hotel in Cologne, the person at the desk asked me if I wanted to upgrade to the VIP floor that had free hors d'oeuvres and drinks in the evening. I said I would love to, but I had lost my wallet and couldn't pay for it since I didn't have a credit card. He didn't say anything to me, but when I went to my room, he had comped me onto the VIP floor. I went back later to thank him, but I didn't bump into him again. He earned some major positive karma that night. This was years back when I was in university, and I was waiting for the public bus to come so I could go home. I had a very long day, kind of slumped over on my seat, and probably looked miserable, unintentional. This woman, fellow student, walking by, took a look at my face and asked if I was okay. She sat down across from me and asked me a lot of questions, and I said I was fine, just tired. I had to convince her that it was just that, and she finally reluctantly left while looking back at me. But she was very caring and considerate to decide to act in the moment with some compassion. Hope she's doing well these days, all things considering. Not sure if this fits. I was walking out of a pro soccer game on a sidewalk near a busy road. My girlfriend was closest to the road, and all I did was move her away from the road and take her spot. These older guys in a car driving by rolled the windows of their down and yelled at me. That was very chivalrous, and we love it. Scared the crap out of me for a second, but it's something I'll remember for a long time. I'm an average-looking dude. Yesterday, like an 80-year-old woman turned around in the grocery checkout line and told me I had very handsome hair. Made my day. I once demonstrated how the hand controls on my minivan worked for a group of Buddhist monks. I was in the airport parking garage when about a dozen of them watched me get into the driver's seat and load my wheelchair in. One monk approached and politely asked how I drove. I showed how the controls were connected to the pedals and how to push down to accelerate, in for brake. They murmured and nodded as I revved the engine, then thanked me and wished me a good day. Their smiles were very kind and genuine. It was a nice experience and a good memory. When I was little and at the Walgreens near my home with my brother, an old lady gave me money while standing in line and told us to buy ourselves some candy that was nearby. That was so long ago, and I wish nothing but the best for that lady whenever I remember that simple gesture. When I was 17, I used to go down to the Pier almost every day during the end of summer to cope with recent heartbreak. I would go there in the evening and stay until night, drinking bubble slushies, drawing and listening to music. Once, while ordering my usual drink, a kid came in and handed me a couple of coins. I think it was less than €1, saying, "You dropped these outside, sir," and then left. I saw him standing outside with his mom, so I got him the same slushie I was getting, gave it to him, smiled and left. I didn't drink alcohol when I went home that day. When I was in a uni seminar and a woman in my group who I didn't know very well called me pretty. I'm quite shy and awkward and not conventionally attractive, so that made my day and my life, to be honest. 2. One where I was the good guy and one where I got helped by the good guy. I was on a flight from Europe to the US. We were flying with our 6-month-old baby. Flight was fine. Baby slept most of the time, and I struck up a conversation with some Swiss dude sitting next to me. We land in DC and have about a 4-hour layover. A couple hours into the layover, while wandering around, some guy runs up to us. It was the dude from the plane. We had forgotten our baby's blanket on the plane, but he had remembered that we were flying on to Oklahoma City, so he had taken it to the gate for our next flight and given it to the staff with a description of us. Super cool dude. Once I was walking home from work and saw this little girl, probably like 8 or 9 years old, standing on the sidewalk. She was alone, crying and looked distressed. I asked if she needed help, and she told me that her band practice or whatever had ended early, but she couldn't call her mom to come pick her up because some bullies had stolen her cell phone. I live in a busy city and felt bad because people were just walking by and not helping her. Luckily, she knew her mom's number, so I called her mom, explained the situation, gave her the phone so that she could talk to her mom, and then waited there with her until her mom got there to pick her up. I pulled into the mall parking lot and heard something snap in my car, but couldn't figure out what it was. Did my shopping and came back. The car would start, but I couldn't shift out of park. A man and his daughter pulled up and saw me craning under the steering wheel and came over to ask what was wrong. The guy took a look at it. Turned out a wire had wrapped around the drivetrain and snapped when I turned the wheel, and for safety reasons, the car would not drive again until it was fixed. I was pretty much in despair. I was a broke college student with no money to have the car fixed, let alone towed and then fixed. But this dude was not just a dad. No. He was a super dad. Not only did he have the know how to fix my car, he had all the tools in his truck. There were complications. Twice, he and his daughter took me to AutoZone to get parts I needed. He worked for a few hours, finished as it was getting dark, and once they were sure my car worked, he and his daughter left without having set foot in the mall. This was a couple of years back, and I don't remember their names, but I'll always remember what those two did for me. Wrote this out before. Went away to the mountains with the wife before our second kid was born. Wakes up in the middle of the night with bad pains, says we need to get to hospital as soon as possible. Height of the pandemic, they won't let me in and we are far from home. I end up trying to sleep on the floor. In the morning, they tell us she needs to be kept for observation. My exhausted arse needs to drive back and get our stuff. Besides the stress and exhaustion, it had snowed and I was driving through slippery, winding mountain roads that hadn't been plowed yet. At one point, the car starts drifting and I can't regain control. Past the double lines and into a snowbank. Car is covered to mid-windows and I pass out. I was woken by a stranger that was following a little behind. I got out of the car, but had no cell service, so he took my info and drove to the base of the mountain to call American Automobile Association. No luck. Another dude with a pickup stopped, and they helped me dig up my car and pull it out. The car was pretty covered with snow. Not sure if anyone would see me if the guy wasn't immediately behind me. Maybe I would have woken up, or maybe I would have just frozen to death. Some other people stopped while I was working on the car and showed me the best part. I went left. Had I gone right, I'd have rolled off a cliff and 100% died. Instead, I got to hold my daughter a few weeks later. Those dudes were my guardian angels, and all I got them was some Amazon gift cards. I was trying to get to this village of like 60-ish people. As you can imagine, not a lot of traffic in the area, so I'm walking in 40 degrees Celsius weather on this road, forgotten by the world itself, that stretches from the previous bigger village and all the way to the one I'm trying to get to, with another one in between, somewhere along the way. I'm straight up about to pass out when this janky 90s Ford shows up at the horizon, rolling towards me. I saw they were packed, so I didn't even try to hitch it, but they stopped anyways. They took me in even though we had to basically climb on top of each other. 7 people, small Ford. We probably looked like a clown car. They were this super sweet family on their way to pick an onion field in the village before mine. I told them they could just drop me off there and I'd walk the rest, but they absolutely refused and insisted they drive me all the way. They told me all about their crops, their life in the countryside, and how everything was simpler there, and asked me about the city. They asked me why I'm trying to get to the middle of King Nowhere, and when I told them, getting all emotional in the process, they offered me compassion and a word of advice. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe.